Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today, we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. It's difficult to pinpoint the exact moment when everything in my life began to unravel. But looking back, I realize the signs have been there long before I was willing to acknowledge them. My name is Audrey, and at 29, I find myself facing the wreckage of choices I never fully understood until it was too late. 6 months ago, I started a sales position at Anchor Office Solutions. It wasn't the most prestigious job, but I convinced myself it was a fresh start, a necessary change after a string of unfulfilling roles. I told myself that this time would be different, that I would finally build something stable. The base salary was unimpressive, sitting at $38,000, with commissions that barely covered my daily expenses. Still, I held on to the promise of potential, believing that once I built my client list, the financial rewards would follow. Meanwhile, my husband, now my ex-husband, Carter, provided the kind of stability I had once dreamed of. As a maintenance supervisor in a manufacturing plant, he earned a steady $55,000 per year, with solid benefits and job security. He never flaunted his income, nor did he complain about carrying most of our financial burdens while I struggled to find my footing. Perhaps that was part of the problem, his quiet acceptance of our life, his unwavering patience, his willingness to do whatever was necessary to secure our future. Instead of feeling grateful, I resented him for it. We lived in a modest rental home. It was fine, comfortable even, but it wasn't a dream I had envisioned for myself as I neared 30. Carter often talked about saving for a house, planning for the future, making responsible financial choices. His practical nature, once reassuring, became suffocating. The way he tracked every expense, packed his lunches instead of eating out, picked up extra shifts to build a financial cushion. It all started to feel like a cage. Then Julius Warner walked into my life. He arrived at our company as the new regional sales director, and from the moment I saw him pull into the parking lot in his gleaming Tesla, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, something inside me shifted. He exuded confidence, success, and a kind of effortless charm that made my life with Carter feel small, ordinary. Julius saw something in me, recognized my potential, as he put it. He gave me attention, encouragement, validation. He made me feel special, valuable. I told myself it was purely professional, that he was mentoring me, guiding me toward success. But deep down, I knew better. At home, Carter remained steadfast, always asking about my day, always supporting me without hesitation. But I found myself pulling away. I started speaking about him differently, even to myself, referring to him as a decent guy rather than the man I had once built a future with. Late at night, I would scroll through social media, seeing former classmates on extravagant vacations, posing in front of luxury cars, celebrating promotions in high-rise offices. Beside me, Carter slept peacefully, likely dreaming of retirement plans and financial security. I began to resent his simplicity, his contentment. Julius's influence grew stronger. He invited me to meetings that ran late, sent texts at all hours, at first about sales strategies, but soon about my aspirations, my dreams, my frustrations. I convinced myself it was harmless. After all, what was wrong with having ambition? What was wrong with wanting more? But I knew. I started changing the way I dressed for work, polishing my appearance, investing in better outfits. Julius noticed, of course, and his compliments only fueled my growing desire for something beyond what I had. One day, he took me to an upscale client lunch, where the cost of the wine list alone exceeded my weekly grocery budget. When I awkwardly suggested splitting the bill, he laughed, brushing off my suggestion as naive. That moment marked a turning point. The lines between mentorship and something else began to blur. He started finding reasons to touch my arm during meetings, standing a little too close when we reviewed reports. And I let him. At home, Carter noticed my changes, how I placed my phone face down on the table, how I stepped outside to take calls, how I stayed later at work under guise of reviewing numbers. He never accused me, never demanded explanations. Instead, he waited for me with warm dinners, asked if I had eaten, continued being his dependable self. His trust should have made me feel guilty, but instead, it made me resent him more. Why didn't he see? Why didn't he challenge me? Then came the Napa Valley trip. Julius framed it as a regional training weekend, a crucial step in my career development. Supposedly, the entire team was meant to attend, but somehow, one by one, they all had conflicts. In hindsight, I wonder if they saw what was happening and simply had the wisdom to stay away. I rehearsed my explanation to Carter carefully, throwing around corporate jargon about sales certifications and regional development. I even printed out fake training schedules from the internet in case he asked questions. But he didn't. He was proud of me, excited for the opportunity one had been given. He even picked up extra shifts to help cover what he believed were travel expenses. And the worst part? He drove me to the airport at 5 in the morning. He carried my suitcase, the new one I had purchased specifically for this trip, and kissed me goodbye, telling me how proud he was. I remember standing in the security line, watching him wave as I stepped forward, feeling a mixture of guilt and resentment so strong it made my stomach churn. Why did he have to be so kind? Why couldn't he have made this easier by being difficult? For a week leading up to the trip, I had practiced removing my wedding ring in the bathroom mirror, telling myself it was only to prevent losing it during the wine tastings. But I knew, technically, Julius had booked separate hotel rooms, but we both understood that was only for appearance. He joked, "What happens in Napa stays in Napa," as if this was some kind of inevitable indulgence, as if crossing this line was simply part of success. The first day was a blur of extravagant wineries, high-end lunches, and indulgence. Julius acted as though he owned the place, ordering tastings, discussing investment portfolios, making my life with Carter feel even smaller. I took selfies of the vineyards, posting them with captions about professional development, as if writing it down could make it true. Carter had asked for only one thing while I was away. "Just call me at night, just so I know you're safe." That night, I sat on a hotel bed while Julius showered, staring at my phone. I thought about Carter at home, probably warming up leftovers, waiting for my call, and I hesitated. I convinced myself that everything I was doing was necessary, that it was all part of my career growth, a stepping stone to the success I deserved. Carter was wonderful, but in my mind, he was too simple to understand the ambition that Julius represented. I imagined a life where I wasn't just scraping by, where I wasn't living in a modest rental home, watching my husband meticulously budget every dollar. I saw myself driving my own Tesla, living in a house with a wine cellar, just like the one Julius described. I told myself I was finally stepping into the life I was meant for, and I ignored the fact that Julius's hand kept inching higher on my thigh with every glass of wine. I also ignored that I had stopped mentioning Carter entirely. That weekend in Napa felt like a dream, a surreal, intoxicating blur of private tastings, extravagant dinners, and whispered promises of success. Julius kept talking about the future, a future where I was no longer struggling to make ends meet, where I had a real career and the financial freedom I had always longed for. I began to believe it. I convinced myself that my marriage had been a practice round, a temporary chapter before I stepped into the real story of my life. And then, everything changed with a single phone call. I had indulged in far too much wine, the exclusive tasting arranged by Julius, held in an underground cellar that exuded luxury and exclusivity. It was late, but I suddenly remembered my promise to Carter, to check in, to let him know I was safe. Julius laughed when I mentioned it, urging me to forget about it. "You're free this weekend," he murmured, his hand tracing lazy circles on my back. And yet, something in me resisted. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was habit, but I dialed Carter's number anyway. The moment he answered, I felt an ache in my chest. His voice was warm, familiar, steady. He asked about my day, sharing small details about work, telling me how much he missed me. But I wasn't really listening. Julius was beside me, whispering jokes in my ear, pulling me closer, and I found myself laughing, distracted. That's when I heard the shift in Carter's voice. A hesitation, a pause. "Who's there with you?" It was the way he asked, calm, careful, that made my stomach drop. Even through the haze of wine, I felt panic creeping in. My response was clumsy, forced. I mumbled something about bad reception, about being with a training group, but I knew it wasn't convincing. Julius chuckled beside me, amused by the entire situation, and I hated how he reveled in it. I ended the call abruptly, claiming the signal had dropped, but deep down, I knew Carter wasn't fooled. Julius, on the other hand, treated the moment like a triumph. "Now the real fun can begin," he whispered, his lips grazing my ear. "You're finally letting go." I stare at my phone. Carter's name still on the screen. His contact photo, a goofy selfie from his birthday, fading to black. The room started spinning, not just from the alcohol, but from the realization that I had just shattered something irreplaceable. The next morning, Carter sent me a simple text. Asterisk, hope the rest of your training goes well. Love you. Asterisk. I almost threw up. Julius, of course, was unfazed. He was already ordering room service, planning the next winery visit, talking about investment opportunities as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just taken a sledgehammer to the life I had built. The rest of the trip passed in a daze. More wine, more dinners, more moments where I let Julius's hands linger too long. And yet, that phone call haunted me. Every time my phone buzzed with a message from Carter, I felt my chest tighten. Every time Julius spoke about our future, I felt a nagging doubt creeping in. Still, I convinced myself I couldn't turn back now, that I had gone too far, burned too many bridges. And besides, Carter had always forgiven me before. How wrong I was. When I returned home, Carter was there, waiting for me at the airport. He carried my suitcase like he always did, asked about my trip, listened as I rambled about training sessions and networking. But something felt different. He was quiet, not the usual comfortable silence, but a careful, measured kind of quiet. It wasn't until later that night, as we were getting ready for bed, that he finally spoke. "What's really going on with Julius?" My heart stopped. I defaulted to autopilot. "What are you talking about?" I forced a confused smile, pretending innocence. But Carter wasn't playing games. "How drunk were you that night on the phone?" he asked, his voice steady. "What actually happened?" I felt trapped. I scrambled for control, turning the conversation around on him. "Why are you being so insecure? This is about my career. You're supposed to support me." I thought I was handling it well, redirecting, making him feel like the problem was his. But then he did something unexpected. His voice softened. "Just tell me the truth, Audrey. If our marriage means anything, if I mean anything to you, just be honest. We can work through anything. I love you, but I can't live with lies." That moment could have been my way out, an escape route, a chance to say what we had. But I hesitated too long. And then I made the worst mistake of all. I started crying, confessing. I told him Julius had pursued me, that I had gotten caught up in it, that it was only about a promotion. I swore that he was the only one I truly loved. I kissed him, begged him to understand, promised it would never happen again. I thought I could fix it. Carter had always forgiven me before, but this time he didn't. He stepped back, his expression unreadable. I knew it. There was no anger, no shouting, just resignation. He walked to the closet, pulled out a bag that was already packed. That's when I realized he had known all along. He had been waiting to see if I would tell the truth. Panic set in. I begged, pleaded, but his eyes were different, detached, foreign. He told me he had recorded everything. The drunken phone call, our conversation just now. He had the proof he needed. And then he walked out. The divorce papers arrived 3 days later. Along with them, Carter included bank statements, phone records, and worst of all, the recordings. I had no way to deny it, no way to manipulate my way out. Julius stuck around for a little while, but things changed. The extravagant dinners stopped. The talks of promotions became vague. I saw him eyeing a new hire in accounting, using the same lines he once used on me. Eventually, he stopped responding to my messages altogether. The life I built crumbled around me. Word got out at work. My colleagues who once admired me now avoided my gaze. My so-called career was in ruins. I had no savings, no home, no Carter. Some nights, I scroll through old photos from Napa, those fake, cheerful selfies with captions about professional development. Each one feels like a cruel joke. Carter moved on. I heard he got promoted, that he's dating a kindergarten teacher, a woman who feels lucky to have found such a good man. And I lost him for nothing. The hardest part isn't losing Carter or being used by Julius. It's knowing that I had everything I truly needed: love, stability, respect. And I threw it away for fantasy. Some nights, I hover over Carter's name on my phone. I know he won't answer, but I can't bring myself to delete it. It's the last thread connecting me to the life I destroyed. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.